Hello guys and girls, how you going? Screwzilla here, I hope you're all well. Um, a bit of a, not a huge video today, just a bit of a glancing video. The test server is up, so I thought we'd have a quick look at some of the new vehicles we'll be getting in 1.71 when it comes live. So, first things to do, we'll have a quick look through the Italian line, and there's nothing new in the Italian tree that I... Oh wait, there is the S81. There we go. A new medium bomber, basically a starter bomber for them, instead of the Brada BR20. So let's have a little bit of a look at this one. So this plane is very similar to the the SM79. There we go. This was, I think, off the top of my head, a previous model of it, one of the earlier planes, if I can remember correctly. So you got the conventional, the unconventional but conventional for Italian bombers tri-engine setup. So you've got the three engines on her. It looks a lot. This one looks more similar to the Junkers tri-engine bomber than the SM79. In all fact, to me at least. One notable thing is you've got a fixed undercarriage. Let's have a little look at modifications. So you get 4 500-kilogram bombs on board. So that's enough to take out 2 bases, I believe. So pretty decent payload actually for this lower BR. That's impressive actually. That's quite an impressive payload there. So that is something to look at. When it comes out, I will definitely be giving this plane a bit of a go through. Armour is not great, of course, because it is a tier 1 medium bomber. Defensive weaponry, you've got 2 7.7mm Brada Safdat machine guns up the front on a turret, so above you. You've got a belly-mounted twin 7.7mm gun there, and you also have twin 7.7mm Lewis guns in the side of the plane, operated by a single gunner. Now, the interesting thing there is with the Lewis guns, they are pretty effective guns. They are a bit better than the standard 7.7mm, I do find. Another interesting thing we can see here straight away is the fuel tanks are very in line with the plane, so the wings won't catch fire too easily, hopefully. This would be a plane made out of wood and the usual suspects there, so it's not going to be a great plane in that respect. So that's all I can see in the Italian line as a new thing. So let's hop to Japan. And we've got the D4Y2. Now this is an interesting plane because we are actually going to be getting rockets on board. So, how many rockets do we get? 4 rockets with 10 kilograms of mass. So finally, the Japanese have a vehicle that contains rockets. It's one of the big drawbacks of the Japanese ground forces is you don't have any rockets to play around with. So that really does affect you in that regard. Now it's BR 3.3 and 3.7, so it's relatively low BR, especially to have rockets with. The later variant had a slightly more powerful engine. What else have we got? We've got 7.7mm machine guns, front and turret. And again, we've got a 7.7mm machine gun at the front, but we've got a 13mm machine gun at the back in the updated version, well, the more modern version, the top variant. Now, if I recall correctly, one of these has a radial engine, so this one's got the inline, and I think the next one should be a radial engine. I'm going off memory here. Yes, there we go. So the first plane has actually got the DB7, the same engine as the BF109, licensed by Japan, whereas this one has got the inline 14 cylinder radial engine, but it's got a heavier gun load as well, which will make a bit of difference. Rather weak front guns on it though with the 7.7s, but with that 13mm gun at the back, it does have a little bit better defensive armaments. However, this one does not get access to rockets, so yeah, that's going to affect it a little bit. Capable of carrying 260 kilograms and one 500 kilogram bomb. Yeah, that's okay. That's not great, but it's not terrible. I didn't actually look at the bomb loads on the earlier model. So capable of carrying a single 500 kilogram bomb. So you could take out a base with this effectively, but it's more for ground attack, for attacking vehicles. The main thing are going to be these Type 3 No. 1 Mod 28 Mark 1 rockets. Not huge rockets, but they are rockets nonetheless. So they... Do we have penetration values on them? I don't think so. No. So at least Japan now has some rockets available to it, but not in a great plane for use. Okay, let's just check the army line. Let's just check the vehicles for the ground. So we are going to be getting the Ho-Ri prototype, and also they've not added it yet by the looks of it, because I believe they will be adding the Ho-Ri standard as well. I thought they were going to be adding that from memory of reading some of the logs. But let's have a little bit of a look at the Ho-Ri prototype. Now this is a tank destroyer. It's a relatively big vehicle. It sort of looks like a Russian variant of the is it the Elephant? The my brain is not working. Sorry, I've only just got back home. I'm doing this a quick video because the server's up. Whatever that German tank is, you know what I'm talking about. People know what I'm talking about. You're screaming at the screen right now. The Ferdinand. That's... How did I forget the Ferdinand? How do I forget it? Anyway. I did think they were going to be adding a standard variant in as well with this tank, not just a prototype, not just a premium vehicle, but I may be mistaken. I'll be a bit disappointed if they don't add in the standard variant though, because there's not many Japanese ground vehicles to begin with. So, having a bit of a look at this thing, it's pretty bog standard. Engine at the front, massive gun at the back. You've got the 105mm gun on it, so a very decent gun on there. Armour is not great. You've got 75mm at the front, so not terrible, but at 6.0, pretty much everything's going to penetrate you. This armour here is pretty poor because it is not sloped as well. It's just a big flat plate, and it's not thick enough to really stop many things. This is going to be a bit of a sniping vehicle. Let's take it out for a quick test drive and see how it handles with the gun. Yeah, so do forgive me, I've got nothing prepared for these videos. I've got nothing up on my screen, so I've got no information of the vehicle. I'm just purely going off memory, which is never a good thing for me because I've got a shocking memory. So as you see, it is a very big vehicle. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crew members on board, and you are packed full of ammunition as well. So let's take a look. Let's fire at the M26 down there. Pretty easy shot. The gun's pretty easy to use. Relatively long reload there. I'll check out the armor penetration value in a moment. A little bit short there on the 26E1. There is no secondary armament on this vehicle though, so you don't have any guns or anything to use like that. And because this is the stupid test server, I don't have my binoculars set up. So we've got 180, well, effectively 174 to 164mm of penetration, so really about 160 mil of penetration, which is very decent. Fire off a round of the T95 and see what happens. A very big shell, of course. The Japanese armor-piercing HE is pretty decent, so that's always handy to have. a hit but no penetration there, of course. Being the front of a T-95, we're going to have some problems. The HE shell's got 30mm of penetration to it, so will be quite handy against some of the lighter vehicles. And of course we don't go through the front. So yeah, I am interested in seeing this, but I'm more interested in whether we get a standard version, not just a premium version, because, as I say, Japanese tanks don't have enough tanks to begin with. So just having another premium tank in the lineup is not really something to celebrate. It affects the vehicles more than anything else because there's less tanks for us to actually use, which is a very big shame. Okay, so let's hop over to England now. And of course we've got quite a few new vehicles here. We've got the Daimler AC Mark II, which is the armoured car with a Tesseract turret on top. So, cute little armoured car. These I think are actually in-game already technically. If you play air, you can sort of see them being used on the ground. Nothing super special, just a 40-pounder at the front and a 7.92 BESA Beza machine gun on the front. Relatively no armour. There's enough there to stop small arms fire from rifle caliber bullets, but 50 cals are going to cause you damage for sure. The main thing though is the speed of this thing. Maximum speed of 50 miles per hour. Being very lightweight and being an armoured car, it will be very nippy. So expect to see people flanking with that. It will be interesting to see when it comes out. Okay, we'll scroll down a bit. So the main new thing for us for Britain is the Striker and the Chieftain Mark 10, of course. The Striker is the new ATGM. It only has 10 shots, so you got 5 loaded up in there, and I think you have to reload them after shooting them. Similar to the Swingfire, really. It's just another ATGM for the game. Relatively okay armour for it, but nothing that's going to really cause much issue for tanks. It is quite nippy though, so it's going to be quite a fast vehicle. The Chieftain Mark 10 is the new top tier British tank. The 120mm BLTK L11 is the cannon on this thing, and it is going to be very effective. The big difference though is the Stillbrew armour, which is going to give this thing some serious hull down potential. Now the hull of it is still very, very easy to penetrate though. If we x-ray here, we can see there is no effective armour in this area. There is Stillbrew around the turret here, but the main section is around this bit here, giving you almost 450mm of effective armour. Sort of kinetic energy munitions. This thing is pretty damn effective, but only front on and only from the turret. So this tank is going to be something that you're going to be aiming at the hull for. Even sort of more conventional tanks will be able to take this down at battle rating 8.7 as well. It means it will be seeing you, sort of if you're playing the Chieftain Mark III up, you are going to be seeing this thing, which is quite scary because you've got some very effective tanks there. Let's look at Aviation quickly, and we'll do a quick glance over and just see what we miss. So of course there's the Hornet, but I think that is it for new vehicles for us. So the Hornet is our only new vehicle, I think. I could be wrong, but we will see. I think we've also done some compression of some of the files here. They've folded a few vehicles, which is always good. It looks like they've folded up a couple of the Spitfire Griffins, so less research to get to the next vehicle here, which is always handy. The folders do look a lot smaller. Wellington has also been folded up a lot, so that will help people in their progression a bit. Yes. Okay, so the Hornet, a beautiful plane. Now this is the Army variant of the Hornet, or well, the RAF variant of the Hornet. There is a Sea Hornet as well, but isn't in the game yet. But hopefully we will get it, because it's always nice to get more naval vehicles. Some relatively good armour for front on here to protect the pilot, but nothing for the engines, of course. Think of this thing like a Mosquito, but on steroids. It's a single-seat Mosquito, basically. You've got 4 Hispano cannons, very, very central lined under the pilot there. And we also will be getting a lot of different rocket layouts and bomb layouts. So the AP Mark 1 rocket's a new rocket, I think, for the British line, because normally we've got the RP Freeze. So these are some relatively big rockets there, so they will be interesting to see in action. This is going to be a very effective ground attacker for sure, but also it's a very fast plane, so do be careful of it. Okay, off to Mother Russia now. So a quick glance over. The usual stuff. Got the SU-6 4MA2, sorry, AM42, I think that's new. And of course the BE6. And I think that's the only new stuff that we're getting. Pretty sure the SU-6, this one is new from memory. So it's basically like a sort of, the SU-6 is sort of, it's like if you mixed an LA5 or an LA7 with an IL-2. It's an interesting plane, but similar to its later counterpart. You've got the rear gunner, huge amount of armour on it, of course, and a lot of different layouts for weapons. You've got the 30mm guns, 37mm guns on board. You can carry a ton of rockets, a ton of bombs, a very good ground attacker. So I can't remember if that's in game already, but I don't think it is. I think it's only the later variant that is in game. BE6 though, 5.3. Interesting to have such a high BR flying boat. Now this thing is an absolute weapon. It has the same rear turret as the Russian jet bombers. So be prepared for this thing to cause some serious damage with the 23mm cannons. You do not want to go playing chicken with this thing, basically. It's going to be a very effective gunship, for sure. So you've got 2 sets of turrets. You've got a top turret here and the rear turret, and then you've got the single cannon at the front. Let's see what payloads she carries. So you've got 2 torpedoes. The sort of, I think that's a standard Russian torpedo. Pretty useless in all honesty, but they're okay. And you get 2 1,500 kilogram bombs, or 8 500 kilogram bombs. So effective for taking out bases, a very good bomber in that regard. But you are going to be hampered a bit by it being a flying boat. The fact that you will have to basically crash land on an airfield to get repairs during a game. So let's hop to the military side, the army side, and if I miss anything that's new, I'm going to say sorry in advance. The BTR 152A is the new Russian anti-air vehicle. Quite a low BR for it at 3.0. I actually expected it to be much higher, as this is a later vehicle. This is a vehicle from after the war, effectively, and the 14.5mm machine guns, almost like cannons, are very, very deadly. They've got a very fast fire rate. Now this thing did also come with a quad variant of these guns, so maybe they will add that into the game and put it at a slightly higher BR. It is an armoured car, so again it's going to be relatively fast on the roads, not got tracks, very light armour of course, so this thing is going to take punishment from anywhere around it. 50 cals will be able to dispatch it, of course, but from the front you should be able to take a few shots from a 50 caliber and not die immediately. Let's just take this out for a quick test drive, because I do want to show the guns off quickly on this thing, because it is pretty deadly. the penetration on the standard round, what's that going to be? 31mm, so not a huge amount. BF-110 is pretty much rendered ineffective straight away. So you see these guns are very good. Not the fastest turning time on top of the turret, but it is a very low profile turret. Now we'll fire at the Panzer IV there. Probably not going to do much to it. Nope, we get penetration, so that is good. So yeah, this thing is going to be pretty deadly. Especially to planes. As you can see, there's not much drop off from the rounds until you get to about the 10-100 meter mark. So firing towards that Panther there, you can see that the rounds are pretty much just below our crosshair. But if we're firing down at the Tiger, we've got to fire a lot higher up to hit it. So at close to medium range, this thing is going to be deadly. And as I said, the machine guns are absolutely ridiculously fast firing. So yeah, this thing is going to be a bit of a weapon against light tanks, especially at that lower BR as well. I'm very surprised at how low BR this is. As I said, I expected it to be around about the 4 to 4.5 mark. So yeah, watch out for this thing because it's going to be pretty deadly. Yeah, that's come as a bit of a shock to me, a bit of a surprise there. What else have we got new? Okay, I think that's it for the main stuff. Just slightly sing there. The SU-100P. I think that is new. Yes, it is. So, very fast, lightly armoured tank destroyer, this one. Very Russian in its look, though. The 100mm D50 cannon is going to be very effective. If you look at the standard rounds you get, the BR-412 round, 210mm of effective armor penetration, 215, 240. Yeah, this thing is going to be pretty deadly to most things. It does not have any armor, though. It's pretty much a glass cannon, but this thing can go relatively fast, and that gun is a very good accurate gun as well. So it falls in line with the light tanks of the Russians, between the ASU-85 and the Object 906. Now we're moving on to some of the more interesting stuff. So the T-64A, with its composite armor, very low profile. This thing is going to be an absolute weapon on the battlefield. You've probably all seen videos of this in play. If you look at the armor, it doesn't look anything special, but when you switch to X-ray, you see what it is. It's the composite armor inside that makes the difference. The discarding still the APFDS shell is going to be probably the most effective ones. These things are going to penetrate pretty much everything. With kinetic armor, these are very deadly towards it. Whereas Heat FS is not so much. It's not as effective, although it has better penetration on paper. Composite armor and things like that are capable of stopping it. So solid shots are going to be back in fashion. So I'm going to be very interested to see how this goes when it comes out. Now, it's a BR 8.7 again, so the T10M is going to be up facing it, possibly. The IT1, things like that. You're going to get a lot of, well, it's going to feel very unbalanced at first. BMP1, basically a PT-76 again, just with a rocket and a fast-firing 73mm autocannon. These things were pretty effective, pretty deadly. The Viet Cong actually used them to great effectiveness towards the end of the Vietnam War. Of course, their light armour did mean that they took a lot of casualties, but the fact these things can go across water, because they are amphibious, makes them so versatile. Um, this one's got a massive girt fuel tank in the middle. This section here would be used for soldiers, so it's got troop carrying capacity as well. It's basically an APC, so you would carry the troops in the back and have the gunner up the front just in case. They weren't really designed as a main battle tank, but they had capability for it. You've also got the 7.62mm machine gun on board, so this thing has got 80 GMs plus the autocannon as well, and that's going to make it pretty damn effective. The interesting thing about the rocket here is there's actually a flap that goes up to reload it, so it can be reloaded on the move. Now, the penetration of this thing is still pretty amazing because it's such a late vehicle. It's sort of developed in the late 60s, 70s sort of period. Of course, the heat shell is your standard, and you've also got a high explosion fragmentation grenade shell, basically like an RPG. Now, this has got strange armor penetration. It's basically like a high explosive round of 10mm, but I expect it's probably going to do better than what it says on paper. The standard round has 300mm of penetration, so this thing is going to go through most things, but it will be not as effective against some of the more modern designed armor. Now, the ATGM is relatively small, but it will still do a lot of damage. We also get the Object 120, and just look at this thing. It is ridiculous. 152mm M69 cannon. Yeah, this thing is going to be pretty insane. It is a premium, but I think lots of people are going to buy it because it's just so damn silly. Now, the fin stabilized discarding Savo shell has a velocity of 1,710 meters per second. Very fast firing. I think the only thing that has better is the T62, with one of its shells only just like a couple of meters per second. It's not much, but this thing is going to be absolutely deadly. Even its HC shell has a penetration value of 49mm, and the heat, of course, almost 500mm. But this thing is going to be very, very deadly to a lot of things. Again, this is a pure tank destroyer. It's got very little armor. The turret is, as you can see, very thinly armored as well. Mainly, this thing is going to be a sniper. Okay, on to the Germans. So let's pop to the aviation tree and have a quick glance down, see what we can spot, if there's anything new to us there. Nothing's jumping out at me, but I may miss things. Nothing that I can see that's new in there. I don't recall anything as well. Okay, so the army line, well, the ground vehicles line. We will be getting the Waffenträger 5.7. Yeah, this thing is going to be interesting. There was a prototype made of it, but it's not really much else than that. Let's have a bit of a look-see at it. No armor on there at all, really. Enough to possibly stop some 50 cals, but nothing else really to protect you. This thing is an all-or-nothing gun tank. The 88mm at 5.7 is going to be, well, we know it's an effective gun. Modifications. Standard shell's got 235mm, well, about 220mm at 500 meters, 250 for the APCR, and the heat shell 110mm. I think most people are going to be using the Panzergrenade APCBC round, in all honesty. That's going to be the one most people will be using on this. yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this in action. It's a pretty deadly vehicle. So what's the National got on it? So the National's got the 8843. So it's a little bit higher in tier than the Nashorn. I think there was originally talk of this being slightly lower BR, but I'm glad it's not. But it has got the quick 43, so basically the Tiger 2's gun. So yeah, this thing is going to be pretty deadly. The Nashorn is already a very, very deadly vehicle. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Now then, we have the MKPZ-M47, so the M47 pattern, but the German version in the premiums, and this is a 6 point, sorry, 5.0 premium, tier 5 premium, sorry, but a 7.7 battle rating. So this is a higher battle rating premium. So it's basically a German pattern. Decent tank, gonna do decently. I don't think it gets anything different from the top of my head from the American variant. But yeah, something to add into their line there. So that will be handy to have something a bit different from just the standard Leos. The KPZ-70 is the German battle tank, main battle tank. Germans and Americans get pretty much the same vehicle. There are some slight differences in the weight and the engines used, but there's not really much. Armor-wise, standard armor, some very thin-looking armor if you look at it that way, but as soon as we X-ray, you can see the spaced armor in front of it. And this thing has got some serious frontal armor to it. Some decent side armor on the turret, but of course through the tank itself. Magical tracks will save it most of the time, but if you aim just below the track, this is going to be penetrated a lot. I'm trying to think. I think this does have hydraulic suspension. I know one of the new ones does. But this thing is going to be pretty deadly. I'm not that excited about it, in all honesty. I'm more excited about the British and Russian top tier tanks. But you just look at the ammo. It's just ridiculous. And you also get an ATGM with this thing as well. So it's going to be a very deadly vehicle to the German arsenal. It's going to help the Germans quite a lot. It is a step up above the mouse, but at 8.7 it will mean that mouses can face it. Mice can face it. So maybe it's time to knock the mouse down to 7.6. I don't really know what we do about that. Like the Tiger 10.5 centimeter gun. This thing can possibly be facing some of the top tier vehicles now, and it just feels very, very unbalanced in that regard. Okay, off to Old Glory herself, America. And we will be getting a couple of new planes for America. The Corsairs, there'll be some new Corsairs in the mix. There's also the A26B-10. So if you know the A26, then this is very similar plane. Has less machine guns on it, but it's still going to be pretty deadly. So the Corsairs, there's going to be the additional of the F4U 4B. I think this is the new one. And I think again that's one of the new ones. So they're basically going to be the machine gun variant and the cannon variant of that plane. There's also the new Mustang, the P51H5NA, which is a pretty pretty good plane. It's going to be one of the, I think it's going to be the fastest prop in game. You can see it's very sleek looking. It's got a lot of power, and it's also got some decent weaponry on board with rockets and bombs. So this thing's going to be pretty deadly as well. You also get a G suit on it as well, just to add to the joy. With the four-bladed prop, it does help with the speed as well. So it's going to be interesting to see that when it comes out. Okie dokie. Also the Grizzly, of course, in premiums. So the Grizzly has got the 75mm cannon at the front. In all honesty, I don't see many people using cannons anymore because rockets are all people use these days. The Grizzly is an interesting plane, but I don't see it changing the world. I really don't see it being a plane that sets the world on fire and people go, oh well, this is the best plane ever. It's going to be okay, but I just don't feel it's going to be the best. Although you do have the additional bombs on board as well, which will help it a little bit, but it needs a little bit more. Speaking of, actually, I've just remembered there is actually one other Japanese plane, isn't there? There is the KI 109. Yes, that's a new one. The KI 109 interceptor with the 75mm cannon on board as well. This was designed to take out bombers, specifically the B-29. You've got the 12.7mm machine gun at the back, slow firing cannon, big cannon, as you can see, not great penetrative. Oh wait, that's the 12.7. That's why. That makes more sense. So 96mm of penetration at 10 meters. So you're going to be looking at about 95mm of penetration for the armored belt. Very decent high explosive belts. These things are going to be good against bombers, but it's kind of a bit. It's not great. Again, it's still not. Japan needs some help still in certain areas because they are very. They do struggle a bit, especially with close air support and things like that. Of course, close air support is being changed this patch, so we'll talk more on that another day. Okay, ground vehicles. Doobie-doobie-doo. Let's scroll down, see if anything jumps out to us straight away. So there's the T-114, which is the premium. This is a very strange tank. It's a prototype, of course. It's got the 106mm recoilless rifle on front, with a 50 cal on board as well. No armor on it whatsoever, really. Well, there's enough armor to save you from a few guns in game, but it's effectively a very light tank. The main thing for this, though, is the gun, which has got that brilliant recoilless rifle on board. So you'll be able to penetrate pretty much everything with this. Let's take it out for a test drive and see that kind of gun in action. Now, I would love to be able to take these vehicles out properly. Unfortunately, I don't have them all unlocked because it's just a standard account, and I don't have millions of dollars to spend on Golden Eagles. Now, this is also an auto-loader as well. As you can sort of see from the odd configuration of the turret, this side section here is the auto-loading section. So you've got 3 shots, you've got 7 rounds in total. So, let's fire off. Oh, this is interesting, actually, for this higher tier. We've actually got some top-tier tanks in the test drive range. So let's fire off its IT-1 first of all and see what happens. Nice easy destruction there. This gun is going to be very good This is a very good reconnaissance light tank, but it's going to struggle coming up against some of the top tier vehicles. The main issue with the recoilless rifles is the aiming, of course, because they've got great range and great penetrative value, but they do have a lot of drop off. It's one of the things I did struggle with a lot when I first got using them. Of course, you don't have a stabilizer on this tank either, so firing on the move is not really possible. You might be able to get away with it on a flat surface, but it's going to be very tricky. And as you can see, we won't take out that T-62 with one shot there. So we're reloading now. Our 3 shots are fired. We'll do a bit of a test run to see how quick we can fire them off in a second. Kind of good to see that we got some higher BR tanks in the range, and I really want to actually fire against the T-64 down there. So this must be for later range tanks, so you can get a bit of a gauge off firing at these top tier vehicles, which is good in a way. It's quite handy to have that. Now, another thing that will hamper this vehicle is the fact there are only 2 crew members, so you're going to be a one-shot kill, effectively. Twin crew member tanks are a very big disadvantage in this game. Being a premium tank, I can't see this being too popular. I don't think you're going to see many of them come out actually in the game. Easy kill there for the T10. Just because it's going to be very expensive to buy, and in all honesty, it's not OP enough to be a premium tank. And I'm not saying premium tanks should be overpowered, but they should feel relatively strong compared to other vehicles. They need a reason to be premium. This one's premium because it was a prototype vehicle, not because it's a great vehicle. The auto-loading recoilless rifle does have some interesting merit to it. Bounce straight off there. Won't penetrate there. That's good to see. And the fast firing rate of that recoilless rifle is going to be the selling point of this tank. But I just don't see it being good enough for people to buy. There you go, through the lower plate there we can penetrate. But through the top plate we should not go through. And that's really it. So we'll try and kill it off once we got our next rounds loaded in. Aiming is going to be very important come the update, just because you really need to fire at weak points on vehicles to get those kills. I think if we fire the polar up there, we will get penetration. There we go. But the lower glaciers is where we're going to get the most penetrations with this thing from. Yeah, all in all, it's not that impressive. For a premium, I wouldn't really say waste your money on it. It's maybe as a gift or something. By all means, I can see this being quite fun to play, but it's just not... It's not like the T-29, for instance, or the Super Hellcat, or the M46 Tiger. You know, it's not that sort of caliber of tank. So, onwards and upwards we go. We've got the M6A1 and the MBT-70. So we've seen that, really. We know what that one is. There's some slight differences, but the main thing for difference is the M60A1, which has got the fantastic ERA. It's a bit of a dorky looking tank in all honesty because of the ERA. It really does break it up. ERA, yeah, it's going to help a bit, but in all honesty, it's going to be probably the weakest of all the top armors. You know, when you look at this tank, no, its standard configuration, you've not got a huge amount of armor on board compared to the other vehicles. The ERA will help quite a bit though, giving it that little bit of extra protection. But as soon as it's hit, it does bounce off, so there is no more ERA there. So effectively what you can do is pepper it with 50 cals and it should destroy the ERA. If you're actually wondering what ERA is and how it works, I did do a video on it a little while back. Basically, it's basically 2 steel plates with C4 in the middle. When something hits it, it explodes and that sends the force backwards, using Newton's laws and all those sort of doohickeys. But I think this is probably going to be the weakest top tier tank of them all. Also, you will be getting the arm-piercing fin stabilized discarding Savo, which will help out for it, but you need to unlock it. I'm wondering if the standard gets that as well. No. So, yeah, so that's the last thing you unlock is the only thing that's really effective against these tanks. So that's really going to make the M60A1 ERA a very, very weak vehicle, I feel. So yeah, that's the current state of the test server, guys. So, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Hope you found it somewhat interesting. It's only a bit of a quick glance. I wish I could take these vehicles out for a proper test run, but unfortunately I can't at the moment. But it's good to see what we have. One thing to mention about this thing is the 20mm cannon on top, which will make a huge difference for taking out planes. Basically, you've got your own anti-aircraft defense with it. It's a very fast-firing cannon. But yeah, I'm kind of still a bit worried about this update. I must admit, I'm a bit worried about what's coming, and I just feel that these new vehicles are going to be fun to play for a little bit, but not many people will keep playing them. I think working on modern tanks should be left a little bit, while we still have unfinished lines and we still have the naval stuff to come out. They should be priority over a next tier up, but then if it brings players back, then it might be good. Okay guys, I will catch you next time. This is Screezler out, and have a good day. See ya, bye bye.